Hello, welcome to a Google Hangout here at the ROM. Scientists have described maybe 1 million insects on the Earth, and there's probably somewhere between 5 and 30 million that are yet to be described. When I think of an insect, when you think of an insect, you might think of a black fly, or a mosquito, or one of the thousands of beetles that are out there. And often we have sort of a fear-based reaction to insects. And I hope, by the end of this 25-minute talk we're going to have with two ROM insect biologists, that these sorts of myths disappear. The focus of our talk today, our Google Hangout, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can get involved and what you can do to join our conversation and ask questions. But we are talking about, yes, butterflies. Those insects that everybody loves. I don't think there's anybody in the world that would intentionally hurt a butterfly. But I have been intentionally hurt many of insects before. Sorry, Doug. Sorry, Chris. But many of them were black flies and wasps. So without further ado, I'm gonna just give you a layout on how we're gonna hold the next 25 minutes, and I'm gonna introduce two people that are gonna basically be doing most of the talking. So at the ROM here, we piloted a couple years ago the concept of a Google Hangout. And if you're hearing me and looking at me, you're part of it right now. So generally, we broadcast live to YouTube, to the ROM's website, and if you have a Google Plus account, you can do it via Google Plus. And we're basically pushing content out to the web, the worldwide internet, live now, but it will also be held on our website in an archive format forever and ever. So you can watch this down the road again and again and again. You can send us questions via Google Plus or whatever web browser you're using, YouTube or the ROM website, or via Twitter, and we're using the hashtag AskROM, which we always use. So send your questions in. We already have quite a few questions about, again, and I'm going to let Antonia Guidotti introduce this book. So welcome to the Hangout. What a transition.
Hello.
What a transition. To my left, your right, Antonia Guidotti, and to her left, your furthest right, Brad Hubley. So I'm going to leave it to you two. Maybe we'll start with Brad, a quick introduction of who you are, and then hand it over to Antonia to talk a little bit about the intro to the book.
See what I can do. Hi, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Brad Hubley, and I'm one of the co-authors of, let's see if I, oh, this way, oh, back that way, Butterflies of Ontario, ROM Field Guide. I believe it's the 5th in a series of field guides that we've produced here at the ROM. And I'm the entomology collection manager here. I've been here for almost 30 years now, and so part of my job is to, my main part of my job is to look after the insect collection. We have over 1 million specimens here. I was thrilled to be part of the team that wrote this book. Antonia, what have you got to say?
I echo Brad's sentiment here. I was thrilled to be part of this book, yes, and we're very pleased with how it's turned out. We have put in almost 5 years working on this field guide. We had two amazing co-authors, Peter Hall, who lives in Ottawa, and he's a lepidopterist for many years working with Agriculture Canada, yes? Agriculture Canada. And Colin Jones, who's with the Ministry of Natural Resources. And both of them were fantastic co-authors. They're the real experts on the book. They know their butterflies really well. We started this book in 2009, and part of the reason that we wanted to do a butterfly book is there wasn't one for Ontario. There hasn't been. And the ROM Field Guides are just these amazing books. I don't know if you've seen the bird one. That's wildflowers.
My most well-used.
It's not a bird, Dave.
No, this is wildflowers.
Sorry, birds, reptiles and amphibians, and freshwater fishes of Ontario. So just on a personal note, my kids love these field guides, especially the ROM ones, and they're constantly referring to them and using them all the time, and I wanted them to have one that I'd written. So we started with the butterfly field.
let's jump to that as a lead-off point. So the ROM is writing field guides. I mean, take our viewers. Our viewers are coming from all kinds of walks of life. Why would a natural history museum be writing the definitive guide for butterflies of Ontario, fish of Ontario, birds of Ontario, amphibians and reptiles of Ontario? What is in this building that allows us to author those sorts of materials?
Good question, Dave. Let me try to answer it in a couple of parts. First of all, is we have the knowledge here in the individuals, myself and Antonia, the other folks who wrote the other field guides. We have ichthyologists, people who are experts in fishes, staff members who are experts in birds, who have spent decades studying these groups of organisms. And all of that knowledge is based on the collections that we have here behind the scenes, back of house. So as I mentioned, we have over 1 million specimens in our entomology collection. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of fish in the ichthyology collection, tens of thousands of specimens, if not hundreds of thousands in the plant collection, and so on. And so those collections have been growing for 100 years in some cases. And so there's a wealth of knowledge associated with that. And so we're the logical choice to write these definitive field guides.
And Antonia, who published this book? Who paid for it?
Well, two different things. So the funding for the book came from the Stone Trust.
Yep.
So thank you, Stone Trust. Have to acknowledge where the funds came to get this done, and staff time here as well. And in some cases, it was actually also from photographers that donated their images. So in a sense, we have to acknowledge them. We had over 65 photographers that contributed images to this field guide, and there were quite a few of them that donated their images without any compensation, except for maybe a copy of the guide. So it's very important that we say thank you to them. Besides the co-authors, there were also 2 colleagues in Ottawa that did the maps. That did the maps for us, and Brad will talk about that in a minute a little bit further. But there were also other individuals across Ontario that shared their expertise and information about butterflies in Ontario and what they knew about it. And also, we can't forget our publications department. Tara Winterhall was the designer.
Tara!
Couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, and the botanists in the ROM as well contributed this book, because most caterpillars feed on plants, and we had to get the plants right in here. And we also included a plant list for people that may want to include certain plants in their gardens to attract butterflies. And attracting butterflies means that you welcome their caterpillars into your garden as well. Hey,
Terry Baker, we just answered your question. Terry, she asked, how do I get a butterfly to visit my home? You?
Plants that the caterpillars will like and that the butterflies can nectar on.
Excellent. So let's start real quickly here, Antonia. Can you describe how the book is laid out? How the different sections work, and then we can segue into these remarkable maps. It's, I think, revolutionary in a field guide.
That's a first.
Okay, so we'll start with Antonia. How does one use this book effectively?
We have a section on that in the guide. We tried to include everything about butterflies that we possibly could. So you've got everything from how the book itself, a history of butterfly study in Ontario, which is interesting for some people, butterfly life history, morphology, a key. So for people that don't know butterflies that well, and maybe wouldn't know where to start, there's a key that helps you to get to the right family. And then the families are color-coded. So each one of them on the side has a color on the edge, so you can go right to it. So this is the Pieridae, the sulfurs and the whites are beautiful pink, and then each one of them has a different color. So we included in the book 14 sites that the authors thought would be interesting around Ontario for people to visit. Some of them are far north, so it's less likely that people are going to go there. But there are a number of them where you can go and, there's certain species that you're just going to find there, or you know, it's a good place to look.
Mm-hmm.
So we profiled those. Brad did an amazing job with the comparative plates.
You're too kind.
I'm not too kind. They're great.
Gosh.
And quickly, the best part about these comparative plates, Antonia, is that these animals come from
the ROM collection. Most of them.
Collection.
Some of them are from the Canadian National Insect Collection, but I think in Ottawa, the 95% of them are images that were taken here at the ROM from our collection. And Brad.
From our esteemed photographer, Brian Boyle.
Yes.
Brian Boyle.
He was amazing.
Yeah. So,
what a team we are here at the ROM.
For those that aren't familiar with comparative plates, it just helps you to identify a species because there's groups and clusters of them that are very, very similar. Oh, that's not really good.
There you go.
So, so the sulfurs, for example, they kind of look all alike to me in some degree. And so this helps kind of to figure out which one's which.
All right, before we talk about maps, I got to make 2 quick announcements. We have 2 of these brand new books available for you for free if you send us a question now and we get it via Twitter or YouTube or whatever else and we ask it on the air and these guys know the answer. We'll send you the free
copy?
No, you are helping them win the free copy.
Oh.
So you can DM.
So we're doing all the work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, they got to ask the question.
Okay. Can I answer a question? Which one there?
Yes, are butterflies in the same family as moths?
Now, butterflies are actually a bunch of different families.
Oops, where do we go?
Nope. Are we still on? Technical difficulties.
If you can hear us, we're still here.
Yes.
One more on.
Just keep talking.
Okay.
There we go.
So,
thanks, Brian.
Butterflies are in the order Lepidoptera, which means scaly wings.
As are moths.
As are moths, but the suborders are 2 different. So even though they're very closely related, because they all have scales on their wings, butterflies are on one side and the moths are on another. But
Simple answer: no, they're not in the same family.
They're in the same order.
Same order, different families.
Yes.
Okay. And is it true that butterflies fly only during the day and moths fly only during the night?
No.
Okay, can you tell? I would have thought that was to be true.
There's always an exception to the rule. Generally, you'll find butterflies flying in the day, moths flying at night. I got that straight, right? But there is one family of butterflies, moths, called uraniids. They're very brightly colored, and they are actually day-flying moths.
We have some in Ontario too, day-flying moths. There's a few type moths and others that also fly during the day.
So is your next book going to be the butterfly or the moths of Ontario?
No.
Next book?
Can we just relish
Okay.
getting this out before you talk about others, please?
Okay, so one of the most remarkable things about this book certainly is the distribution maps. Everybody knows a field guide will give you some sense of where the species is in the area that you are in, and often they're very static. So these maps show historical distributions of the animal or plant in question. So Brad, tell us what's new about these maps and why it's sort of revolutionary for the field guide concept.
Well, let me start with the distribution maps are based on hundreds of thousands of records of butterflies, whether they're observations or actual specimens that have been collected over the years, dating back decades. What we believe is to be a first for a field guide are what are called predictive distribution maps. And our colleagues Maxime Lervet and Michelle Staples designed these maps, generated them for us based on a number of factors, including vegetation, climatic conditions, and geology of the area. So they would deal with one species at a time, take a look at all of the known distributions of that particular species, and they combine that with the climatic conditions, the geology of the area, the land cover, and then try to predict where you might be able to find that particular species. And it's interesting because if you look for some of the species, you'll see in northern Ontario a line of records of butterflies. Mm-hmm. And if you put that on a highway map, you'll see it just happens to be Highway 17 that goes across the northern part of the province. So if you just had a normal map, you'd see that's the only place that you'll ever find this particular species. But with their predictive distribution maps, thanks to all of their hard work, you can see that because of those conditions that I mentioned earlier, that you'll find them in other areas up in northern Ontario or throughout the province as well.
So Brad, our viewers right now are seeing an image of a Google map of Ontario. Antonia, Brad, there's, I think I read 167 species of butterfly known to be in Ontario. How many are going to be, let's say, north of Lake Superior?
Far fewer than south.
That's what I'm getting at. Talk to us a little bit about the distribution of these guys throughout the province in terms of numbers.
Well, normal distribution maps are also somewhat biased because the majority of the population lives south of, near the U.S.-Canada border. Mm-hmm. So that's where the majority of all of the specimens are going to be collected, where all the majority of the observations are going to be made too. And so the predictive distribution maps help us and help the reader to say, okay, well, you know what, this particular species or these species are found in this northern part of the province. I wonder if they can find them further north where people generally aren't. And based on climate, geology, plant cover, there's a good chance that you would, if you were able to access those remote areas, that you would find those species there.
And now, although Brad's talked about the predictive, we actually have also on the maps the actual records.
Yes.
So the dots, you can't really see this very well, but the dots that we have to do to help them, but the last couple of years, especially this last year, not enough of them overwintered. So the numbers were really, really down over this winter. And one of the things that people have been encouraged to do is plant milkweed. And this also addresses the second question by Rosemary Mantini. And the first one was by Brian Irvine. There are many different species of milkweed, and I believe the monarch caterpillars use all of the different species. So there isn't one over the other that you could plant. I don't know where you can actually buy milkweed. It was just delisted because it was on the noxious weed list, so you weren't even supposed to have it. But now it is. It's not considered a noxious weed anymore, so you can have it in your gardens, and people are encouraged to plant them.
You might be able to find flowering plants and get seeds from them.
That's right. That's probably the best way. Go into a field, go into a meadow. Milkweed grows in many, many different places, and it's not that difficult to find them. What can be done to help them in Ontario? If they make it up here, and there have been reports of monarchs in Ontario, I've even seen some myself, plant the milkweeds. One of the things that I saw, and it was a little disturbing, is just around farmers' fields, the farmers tend to mow the area between the road and the field. And I actually saw a farmer doing this. And we had been riding along, and we saw monarchs laying eggs in those areas. And then I know that the farmer subsequently went through and mowed all that down. So I don't know if a farmer or anyone encouraged them to leave those areas for the monarchs, especially where there's milkweed.
So we are down to just 5 minutes left with our Google Hangout. I think we've gotten consensus from the 5 or 6 people in the room that Brian Irvin, with that question around monarchs and what we can do to help them in Ontario, was our second winner. So certainly, Brian, direct message at ROM Biodiversity. Same with you, Terry, and we'll get you your books mailed out. So with the remaining 5 minutes, I think it would be good to talk about what some of the work that you guys are currently doing here, and just talk a little bit about what you do other than build amazing definitive field guides for animals in Ontario. So, Antonia, can you just tell us about what is it you do at the ROM, and what are you going to do tomorrow, and what are you going to do over the next 6 months?
Well, one of the joys of working here is that my days are all different. And although almost 100% of my time in the last 6 months, say, has been on the field guide, I do have a lot to catch up on. One of the things that I do is I answer public inquiries about insects. So if you find an insect in your house, or if you find it in your backyard and you're concerned about it, or you want to know what it is, people can send me the images or specimens, and I identify them and tell them what they are.
Awesome. And Brad?
What do I do here? Like Antonia, No 2 days are the same. What am I doing right now? I'm working on databasing a collection of hoverflies and sawflies that a graduate student collected a few years ago and is depositing in our collection. So I do a lot of that. Make our specimens available for other researchers outside of the institution. And the best part of my job, I would have to say, is I get to participate in field work around the world, from Canada's Arctic to tropical forests in Southeast Asia and South America, and every place in between.
Awesome. So I've got one other question here, which I think is a great one. But before we answer it, I don't want to run out of time before we let you know how you can get this guide. So certainly we would prefer you to come on into the ROM, and it will be in our store. It retails for, I think, $29.99. You can also get it at Amazon, and we're sharing with you the ISBN number and the call from Amazon. Also at Indigo. Anywhere else, Antonia, that they can
Indigo
find?
Chapters.
Indigo Chapters.
And I think Costco is going to have them as well.
Okay, Costco as well.
Yeah.
And that relates to our next question a little bit. And the question is the field guide for Ontario useful for provinces like Manitoba and Quebec?
Now, Manitoba's west. This is asking about east.
Okay.
There is a wonderful Papillon de Quebec guide that would probably be more useful for those in Quebec. And I believe, I don't know if there are guides in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, but there's some online material for them. Would it be useful for
Sure.
identification of this species? Potentially, yes. And because we've included information about wider distribution and abundance, you would be able to say, oh, well, it may be found in
Because in that section we'll talk about, it may be found from Nova Scotia all the way to British Columbia, or from the southeastern U.S. seaboard up to northern Ontario.
So again, the maps themselves will focus on Ontario, but the actual written distribution gives you a better sense of where
Talks
it's.
about the North American
Okay.
distribution.
So with a minute remaining, Brad, let's start with you. Can you just finish this up? What was your final impressions on the book? What do you want people to know about this book?
It's such a tremendous thrill to see it published. I don't know how many times we went over it, proofreading it, editing it. In one case on the comparative plates, our lead author, Peter Hall, said, Brad, as much as I love the word angel wings, they're actually angle wings on the title of the comparative plates. He and I had looked at that page probably a dozen times, and we kept missing it. And just by accident, he spotted it. So to have it in print, it's all done now. It's a great feeling.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I could say I've been bouncing off the wall since I've seen it. We're very, very pleased with it. It looks great, but I think more importantly, we know how good the content is. We know that this information is good. It tells you about the butterflies. It's going to help you identify them. We think it's fantastic.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to Peter Hall and Colin Jones, our two lead authors. Without them, this guide would not have been possible. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So again, that was Brad Hubley and Antonia Guidotti, two entomologists here at the Royal Ontario Museum, two of the four co-authors of the definitive book, The Butterflies of Ontario. Get yours today, and we'll see you on the next Google